So on Wednesday, we basically discussed some microscopic characteristics, and there were two microscopic characteristics that we discussed: spacing and headway. So headway is the time interval between two successive vehicles to pass the observation point, and spacing was the interval, the distance between two successive vehicles at any time. Okay, and then we discuss the relationship between spacing and headway. So basically, if you know headway and speed, then you can calculate spacing by multiplying them. Okay, and vice versa. If you know spacing and headway, then you can calculate speed and so on and so forth. And then I showed you this graph where I tried to explain some trends. So the trend is if the headway is constant, then spacing increases with the speed. If spacing is constant, okay, then headway will increase with, headway will decrease with the speed. If spacing is constant, then headway will decrease with the speed. Okay, at constant spacing, at more speed, you will have a lower headway. Okay, and then between two lines, you can see if I keep the speed and spacing same, then the headway will be less. Okay, at same if I keep the speed same, then increasing headway will also increase the spacing as well. At same speed, increasing headway will increase the spacing as well, and so on and so forth. Okay, then these are some relationships between headway, spacing, speed, flow, and density. So macroscopic, microscopic parameters both, shown here. Okay, so flow is equals to speed and density. I call it the basic equation of traffic flow. F equals to S into D. So they have, for our convenience, they have done the unit conversions here as well. No? Vehicles per hour flow, miles per hour speed, and vehicles per mile is the density. Then flow is the inverse of headway. Flow is the inverse of headway, and we have learned all these relationships in traffic engineering course. Okay, we are not discussing anything new. So flow is the inverse of headway. So F equals to 1 upon H, where H is the headway. Okay, now what is this 3600 doing here? They are saying flow inverse of headway. So flow should be 1 upon H. What is this 3600?
Number of seconds in an hour.
Number of seconds in an hour. Okay, and we calculated the saturation flow rate using this method in the last lecture. I gave you the headway, minimum headway for arterials and freeways, and then we calculated, or then they showed us how much capacity we can have. Okay, and then you can see the units. So you can see the 3600 hours per second. Okay, and this is seconds per vehicle. So they are saying that the unit of headway is actually time per vehicle, because after headway you have the next vehicle, right? After time equals to headway, you have the next vehicle. So it's seconds per vehicle. You take the inverse, you get vehicles per second, and 3600 is number of seconds in the hour to convert to have the answer in vehicles per hour. Then spacing goes to headway into speed, and we did one example in the last lecture as well about it. So again, spacing is feet per vehicle. So after these many feet, you will have the next vehicle. So this is feet per vehicle, and density is then inverse of spacing, because density is vehicles per mile or vehicle per length, and spacing is length per vehicle. So you take the inverse. Again, what is this 5280? Inverse of spacing is 1 upon, it should be 1 upon S. No, we are using spacing as X, should be 1 upon X. Okay, this should be X. You can make the correction in the slides which you have. It should be 1 upon X. Spacing is X. So what is this 5280? My question was, what is this 5280?
Number of feet in a mile.
Number of feet in a mile. Okay, this is what is written here. So it's basically we are saying spacing will be in feet, and we want the answer of density in vehicles per mile. So this is basically the conversion factor. And again, it's the same logic, that spacing means feet per vehicle. okay, or length per vehicle, and density is vehicles per length. So you take the inverse, and since the spacing is in feet and density should be in miles, so we have 5280 here. Okay, now we'll move on to vehicle kinematics. Okay, so there are many relationships related to traffic flow which depend upon vehicle kinematics, okay, and the basic principles of physics. Okay, and again we have discussed them in traffic engineering and highway engineering course as well. So we are just going through them again here. So we know from physics, we know everything, okay? These are all coming from physics. These are basic principles of physics, and they are part of kinematics of any moving body, vehicle or any moving body. They will follow these, basically these relationships. So speed equals to distance upon time, we know that. Acceleration is difference in speed upon time, okay? Difference in speed upon time, or time of acceleration, okay? Difference in speed upon the time of acceleration, which will give you the acceleration, okay? And here acceleration is taken as a constant. So from SF to SI, or from SI to SF, acceleration is not changing. You are accelerating at a constant rate. Then final speed will be initial speed plus acceleration into time of acceleration, okay? And final position of any object, any moving object, will be initial position plus initial speed into the time without acceleration plus half of acceleration into the square of time of acceleration, okay? And using this relationship, speed equals to x upon t, you can find out the reaction distance before the driver begins to decelerate for any obstacle. We call it the perception reaction distance, right? And the time which is taken by the driver to decide whether he should decelerate or not, that is the perception reaction time. So xPRT equals to s into t, speed into time, and then we have 1.47, which is the conversion factor, because speed should be in miles per hour, time would be in seconds, and x will be in feet. So if you want to find out how far a driver will be able to see an object before they can accept a certain size of gap in the traffic, then you can apply the concept of perception reaction time here. Okay, so again you can see a different application of perception reaction time in this book. Earlier we have used perception reaction time to calculate if there is an obstacle in front of you, then how much distance you will cover before you will decide that I should decelerate or I should stop for that object. Okay, we used it for that purpose, but here they are using it for defining the gap, okay, between you and the other vehicle before you decide what to do. Okay, so for example, what they are saying here is, let's say this is a roundabout, okay, and you are waiting here at the roundabout for your turn to enter, okay. So at how much gap between you and the other vehicle, the vehicle which is coming from this side, you will be willing to enter the roundabout? How much gap you will be willing to accept between you and the other vehicle when you decide to enter the roundabout? Okay, so for example, if you are willing to accept a gap of 5 seconds, if you are willing to accept a gap of 5 seconds, so basically what we are saying is, when you enter the roundabout, you are approximating that the other vehicle will come at this point at least after 5 seconds. Okay, so there's a gap between you and the other vehicle of at least 5 seconds to reach at the conflict, or to reach the entry point of the roundabout, the point from where you are entering the roundabout. So if your speed is 35 miles per hour, and if you are willing to accept a gap of 5 seconds, then basically the distance between you and the other vehicle should be 5, the perception reaction time, and then 1.47, which is the conversion factor, into 35, which is the speed. So the distance between you and the other vehicle should be at least 257.3 feet. For you to have a gap of 5 seconds between you and the other vehicle, the distance, in terms of distance, it should be 257.3 feet. Okay, at 35 miles per hour speed. So this is another, like I said, another application of using the perception reaction time to find out the gap in terms of distance between you and the other vehicle when you are entering an intersection or when you are trying to accept a gap between you and the other object. Okay, and that other object obviously will be another vehicle, or it can be a pedestrian as well. It can be a pedestrian as well. Okay, so you are maybe the pedestrian is crossing from here, and you want to decide whether I should stop, I should go. Whether I should stop because the pedestrian is too close, or whether I should go. Okay, then again you can, if you are willing to accept a gap of 5 seconds, then it means the pedestrian will reach, or you will reach after 5 seconds at this place. Okay, so that means the gap between the distance from which you are looking at the pedestrian is 257.3 feet. Okay. Other applications of kinematics is calculating the distance. Okay, so we said the final distance equals to this, right? Initial value of the distance plus SIT plus half AT square. So here, if you take initial position as 0, then you are left with this thing. Okay, and then from here we know the value of A. Okay, so here it was basically this should be SI into T. Okay, so again there's a correction here. This should be SI into T because we are putting initial position as 0. Okay, and how we are getting this? We basically replace the value of A and T here, because it was half AT square. So I replaced the value of A and T. So A was this thing, and T was coming from here. Okay, so replacing these values. Okay, and if you put the final speed as 0, okay, and the initial distance xi is 0, then you can find out the distance traveled to reach to a stop. Okay, from any initial speed you can find out the distance to reach to a stop. Okay, and so they are saying initial position is equal to the perception reaction distance. Initial position equals to the perception reaction distance. Okay, so xi equals to the perception reaction distance, which is 1.47 t into s, and here since we are putting sf as 0, so we'll be left with this. Okay, and again 1.47 is the conversion factor. Okay, so when you combine the perception reaction distance and this will become the braking distance, then you get the total distance required to come to a stop. Okay. Okay, so we have to find out the total distance required for a vehicle to come to a full stop if we are traveling at 25 miles per hour, perception reaction time 1 second, deceleration rate of 11.2 feet per square second. So in the previous equation I was just saying acceleration and acceleration, but basically when you are taking the case of stopping, it is deceleration, right? It is deceleration. So we have to find out the total distance required for stopping using these values. Okay. So 25 miles per hour speed, perception reaction time 1 second, and 11.2 feet per square seconds of deceleration rate. Okay, so this is 1. This value is 1. This value is 25. Okay, and this is 11.2. So how much distance will you have here?
Uh, 273.
273.
3.
3. Point something?
0.1.
0.1 feet. Okay, so this is the first part of the question. In the second part of the question, they are saying repeat the calculations for speeds up to 45 miles per hour. So from 25, you will increase the speed up to 45 using an interval of 5 miles per hour. So 25, then 30, 35, 40, and then 45. And then you will also assume a reaction time of 2.5 seconds. Okay, so let me make an Excel sheet here.
Doctor,
Yeah.
the first number, I think it was wrong. It's 157.3.
157, okay.
Yeah, there was a mistake.
Okay, so they are asking us to change the speed and the time. Okay, so when we use the speed of 25, time of 1 second, the distance was, you are saying 157 point, how much? The first distance was how much? 157 point?
0.3.
0.3. Okay, then they are saying change the speed with an interval of 5 miles per hour. So 25, then 30, then 35, then 40, then 45. All these values with time of 1 second. Okay, and then these values again with a time of 2.5 seconds. Okay. So you will recalculate the values in both cases. Let me put it over here. Okay. So give me these values.
Doctor, the first value is 97.04.
This is 97.04.
130.92. 130.92. 169.62. 213.15. 261.49.
Okay. Now you have to change the time as well. Okay, 2.5 seconds.
152.16. 197.07. 246.80. 301.35.
Others can check these values. I'm just taking them because Salma is the only one speaking. Yeah.
360.72.
And 7. Okay. So if anyone has a problem with the values, they can let me know. Okay. Okay. Now let me plot them. Okay, to see what happens when you change these parameters, right? So let me. Okay, so this is the chart according to speed now. So we speed. Okay, and then let me add the other one as well. Okay, so then we plotted it, speed and the time for stopping. So when you increase the speed, you need more time for stopping, obviously. So at high speed, you need more time to stop. Okay, this is very obvious. And then you can see the effect of the perception reaction time as well. So when you increase the perception reaction time, your where is it? Okay, so when you increase the perception reaction time, you need more distance as well. So at constant speed with high perception reaction time, you will need more distance to stop, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these are very simple examples. Okay, and which they have shown here as well. So when you increase the speed by 80%, you are increasing the distance by 170%. Okay, so from 25 to 45, basically we are increasing the speed by 80%. Okay, and but from 25 to 85, oh sorry, 45, the distance is increasing by 170%. Okay, so we are comparing between the initial value of the speed and the final value of speed, and comparing between the initial value of distance and the final value of distance. Okay, so when the speed changed from 25 to 45, the distance changed from 100 to 250 something, right? 261, sorry, 261. Okay, and same thing here, it changed from 150 to 360.7. Okay, so this is 170% increase in the distance. Okay, so it's not a linear relationship. Speed and distance is not a linear relationship. It doesn't change with the same amount. 80% doesn't have an increase of 80%. Okay, it's actually the increase is double. You see here 80 and 170, it is almost doubled. The increase is doubled. So speed has a double effect, like a twice effect or 2 times effect on the distance. And adding a perception reaction time of 1.5 second, which commonly happens if you are getting distracted during the driving, or if you see any unexpected event, then it is very common that your perception reaction time may increase by 1.5 seconds. Okay, so when you increase the perception reaction time by 1.5 seconds, then you have a 57% increase in distance at low speed. Okay, and 38% increase in distance at high speed. So the effect of increase in perception reaction time increases with the speed as well. Okay, so if I can keep on plotting these graphs, both these lines, to higher speed values as well, then you will see that the difference between the two lines will keep on increasing. Here you can see the difference between the two lines only 50 feet. 50 feet. Okay, and here at this point it is more than 100 feet. At this point it is more than 100 feet. Okay, so with the increase in speed, reaction time will have a higher effect on the total distance to stop. The reaction time has a higher effect on the total distance to stop when the speed is higher. Okay, so if you keep the speed same and you change the perception reaction time, okay, it will have a lower effect at lower speed and a higher effect at high speed. So if you are calculating, for example, the distance required for stopping at a signal or a pedestrian crosswalk, then this much increase, having an increase of 38% or something, that can have a lot of effect on your design. That can have a lot of effect on your design. Sorry, I think I said the other way around, right? I said the other way around. At lower speed, the effect is bigger in terms of percentage. 57% change in time at lower speed and 38% change at high speed. Okay, so the effect of perception reaction time at high speed is basically lower. Okay, in terms of percentage, how much change in distance you have in terms of percentage. So this is obviously the distance is more 100 feet, but if you calculate the percentage of 100 feet out of 260 or out of 360, then the percentage would be smaller. Okay, this is what they are saying. Sorry for that. Sorry. So the effect of perception reaction time is higher at low speed and lower at high speed, vice versa. Okay, sorry. Now we move on to the vehicle kinematics. Again, if you want to see it in more detail, then we have covered it in traffic engineering, highway engineering course. Okay, this is something new which we will cover in this course, which is shock waves. Okay, now shock wave is an important concept. It's an important topic when you are studying the propagation or dissipation of cues, how cues are made and how they are dispersed in traffic. Okay, how cues build up and how they are dissipated in traffic. Okay, so that is understood by the concept of shock waves. Okay, so what is a shock wave? It is basically the disturbance created in traffic when it is transitioning from one state to the other. Okay, when you are moving from a segment which was in a particular state of traffic and you are moving to another segment which is in the opposite state of traffic, then this will cause a shock wave. This will cause a turbulence or disturbance in traffic which is known as a shock wave. Okay, so for example, you are going from a segment which was in free flow conditions and you are going to another segment which is in stopped condition. Okay, so you are going from a segment which was in free flow condition, there was no traffic at all on that section, and then you are going to or entering into a segment which is stopped. Stopped because of a signal, maybe. Stop doesn't mean that it's a traffic jam. Maybe it's a traffic jam or maybe it's a signal or roundabout or whatever. So this will cause a shock wave. This will cause a shock wave. Or the other way around. The other way around, you are coming out of a segment which was stopped and you are going into a segment which is in free flow. Okay, you are coming out of a segment which was stopped and you are going into a segment which was in free flow. Okay, and this can happen where? Can somebody tell me? It's very common actually. Going from stop to free flow is very common. It happens very often on many locations. Can somebody tell me when does it happen? When you go from stop to free flow. Any guess?
After the red light?
After the red light, yes. Thank you. So you are stopped on a signal. So obviously the segment in front of you will be completely empty when the red light, when the light becomes green for you, right? Because everybody else is stopped. So that segment is free flow. Okay, so yeah, very good. So this transition from free flow to stopped or stopped to free flow can happen at bottlenecks or because of incidents or because of signals. Okay, so what is a bottleneck? The segment which has the lower capacity, right? The segment which has the lower capacity. So earlier I showed you a figure which was showing a bottleneck. So you are coming, let's say, from a segment which has, let's say, 3 lanes, and you are coming into a segment which has now 2 lanes. Okay, so this one had 3 lanes, and now you are coming into a segment which has 2 lanes. So this will become a bottleneck. This one will become a bottleneck. Okay, so this bottleneck can create a transition. Okay, right, because it will have low capacity, so there's a chance that you are in a better flow condition, and then you are going to a flow condition or a flow quality that is lower than the previous segment. So it is very often very common. Okay, or it can happen because there is an incident. So you are on the same highway, same number of lanes, the road design doesn't change, but one of the lane is blocked because of an accident. So again, it will cause a shock wave. It will make you transition. Okay, because one lane is blocked, so this will become like a bottleneck. It will not be a bottleneck because the number of lanes are the same, but it will behave like a bottleneck because this road space is blocked, and the signal we already discussed. It can also happen between 2 moving regimes. Okay, so free flow and stopped, these are 2 opposite extreme conditions. Stopped and free flow, these are 2 extreme conditions, and they are very easy to identify because one of them will be stopped. In one of the segments, the vehicles are stopped. So this is very easy to identify, but it can happen in two segments where in both segments vehicles are moving, but it can still create a shock wave. Okay, because of the difference in traffic flow. The difference in traffic flow is so significant that even with the movement, you are creating a shock wave. So like they have given examples here, maybe you are coming into a proximity of a slow moving trailer. Okay, so you are behind a trailer then. So this is, let's say, a trailer. Okay, so you are coming at full speed and then you reached close to that trailer. Now you have to slow down. So trailer is moving and you are still moving. But this trailer has caused so much significant difference in your speed that you are causing a shock wave now in the whole traffic stream. Okay, or it may be due to an upward gradient. Okay, so you are coming on a almost level gradient, then you come to a upward gradient. Okay, and that upward gradient can be of a bridge. It can be for the highway as well. Maybe the highway itself is going upward. Okay, a steep gradient, but it can be a bridge as well. Okay, so or it can be a tunnel as well. Then in that case, it can be a downward gradient then upward gradient. Okay, or it can be due to a sun glare. So at a particular, especially it happens when you're coming out of the tunnel. If you are coming out of the tunnel nowadays, alhamdulillah, the weather is very nice. But when it gets to the real Bahrain weather, you will have sun shining upon you maybe many hours a day. So when you are coming out of a bridge, you are passing from under a bridge, or you are coming out of a tunnel, then you may have sun glare directly in front of you. Even nowadays, even in the evenings, the sun glare can be directly in front of you, and then in that case, you'll be slowed down. Okay, so there are locations on the highways, okay, or there are lanes on the highways which have more effect of the sun glare. Okay, so in that case, you may see people getting affected, the flow of people getting affected because of sun glare. So again, they will not stop. Sun glare, tunnel, bridge, upward gradient, slow moving trailer, they don't cause the vehicles to stop completely. Okay, but they will cause a difference which is so significant that it may cause a shock wave. So in this figure, you can see the effect of shock waves at a signalized intersection. Now you can see here they are showing accumulating shock wave and dissipating shock wave. Accumulating shock wave and dissipating shock wave. Accumulating means what? The Q is building up. The Q is building up. This is accumulating. And dissipating means the Q is dissipated. Okay, the Q is now released. You can say it like this. So this is each line is for a vehicle. Okay, each line represents the movement of a vehicle. Each line represents the movement of a vehicle. And this black line shows the position of the intersection. Okay, so you can see here at this, when vehicles are reaching this black line or close to this black line, they start to they stop. Okay, they are stopping here. So if you take this one, this is very prominent here. So when you are reaching near the intersection, you are stopping, and the first vehicle is stopped for this many seconds. This vehicle is stopped for this many seconds, and so on and so forth. Okay. So now you see here the vehicles which came from this time to this time, they had to stop. Okay, the vehicles which came from this time to this time, they had to stop. Okay, so this is the time when the signal was red. Okay, and the vehicles which are coming from this time to this time, they didn't stop. Right, so this is the time when the signal was when the signal was green. Okay, when the signal was green. Now accumulating shock wave will be, or like they have shown it here. So accumulating is when the first vehicle is stopped till the last vehicle is stopped. This is accumulating shock wave. Okay, from the time when the first vehicle was stopped till the time when the last vehicle is stopped. This is accumulating shock wave. And dissipating shock wave will be reverse. Dissipating shock wave will be reverse. It will be from the time when the last vehicle started moving to the time when the first vehicle started moving. Okay, from the last to the first. So accumulating will go from the front to the back, like the queue, right? Queue is starts from the front, extends backward, right? And dissipating is, the other way around. Okay, from the back of the queue till the front of the queue, from the back of the queue till the front of the queue. Okay, so obviously we are not saying that the back vehicle will move first. We are just saying the time when you start measuring the dissipation of queue will start when the last vehicle in the queue has the time to move. When the last vehicle in the queue has the time to move, that is the time when the queue has, the dissipation has started, the dissipation shock wave has started. Okay, so you start measuring from there till the time when the vehicle in the front of the queue was moving. Okay, because until you reach until the last vehicle in the queue has a chance to move, the shock wave has not dissipated. The shock wave does not dissipate until you can see the last vehicle in the queue also moving. Okay, if vehicles, sometimes happens, you are waiting on a signal and the driver in front of you moves slightly because of no reason. So the queue is still at its position. The queue is still there. Okay, drivers are just getting uneasy and they are just trying to move 1 or 2 seconds here and there. It's not dissipation of shock wave, right? The signal is still red. Okay, when the signal will become green, you will see the whole queue moving till the last vehicle. Okay, and they will move continuously. Then you can see here, after that there is no stoppage. So this is the dissipation of the queue. So dissipation of the queue is measured from the last to the first, and accumulation is measured from the first to the last. Okay, so shock wave on signals is very common, very easy to observe, and so on and so forth. And I showed you in the previous slide. You can actually see where the signal is, and the shock wave will always be around that line. The shock wave will always be around that line. It will accumulate from here, and it will always dissipate to the signal. Okay, but on a freeway don't have intersections and signals. Okay, on a freeway, shock waves happen when vehicles, because of the interaction of drivers. Drivers interact in different manner, especially when the highway is at near capacity conditions. So you are very close to reaching the capacity of the highway. So there are many vehicles around you. There are not many gaps. You are still moving, but there are not many gaps. In that condition, some of the drivers will do something that will cause a shock wave. For example, a driver suddenly wakes up and he thinks he is in the wrong lane. So he will try to get back to his lane or try to get to the right lane, and that can cause a shock wave. Okay, so on freeways, the shock waves are very random and they vary a lot. So there is no particular distance at which you can see the shock wave. Okay, and there is no particular reason for the shock wave. For a signal, we know it will always happen at the signal, and it will always start when the signal is red, and it will always dissipate when the signal is green. On freeways, it is very irregular and random. Okay, and you may see a shock wave happening, without any bottleneck or incident. So a bottleneck or incident are the usual reasons of having shock waves on freeways. If you have a bottleneck, one of the you are going from a larger segment to a smaller segment, or there is an incident on the road which has blocked some of the space of the road, that is a usual reason of having shock wave on the freeway, and then it will be like having it on a signal. Then it will be very easy to detect where is the shock wave dissipating, where it is accumulating. But when it happens because of the behavior of the driver, then it is very difficult to explain why it is happening and where it is happening. Okay, so you can see it here in this figure. Here it is happening at this distance. Okay, here it is happening at this distance. Okay, so distances are different. The amount of time shock wave accumulation dissipation is different, and so on and so forth. Okay, I have a video, okay, that I will show, and then we can Okay, so you can see the shock wave here. See the effect of shock wave? It is coming at different distances. See now it is here. Now it is here. Now it is here. Huh? See, it's just shifting. It's like you are watching a cartoon or a game or something, right? See, now there is no shock wave. They are moving freely. Okay, I play it again. See, shock wave is here, then it's here, then it's here. Now it's here. Okay, and then you will see again accumulation here. See, shifting. So one driver did something at this point which caused a shock wave here. Then the shock wave, traveled and it shifted its place from time to time. Okay, so this is how shock waves happen on freeways. They happen randomly. Okay, so just again repetition of the announcements. Every Sunday or every first class of the week, we will have a 5 minute quiz for your self-evaluation, not for grading. 5 minute quiz on Teams, 5 minutes, 5 questions. Okay, and I will create a folder for a class leader. You will submit your nominations. So you will submit 1-page letter, the statement, 1-page statement. Where you will say why you want to become the class leader, the class representative, and why others should vote for you. Once I have like 2 or 3 letters, I will go for the voting, and you can select your class leader. The duty of the class leader is just to facilitate me during the class lectures, and that's it. Okay, so Ali Salah is here. Okay, Ali Akil and Iman Kamil. Ali Akil and Iman Kamil. Not here. Asma Khalil, Zahra Sayyed, Nujur Salah. Asma Khalil is here.